Hello everyone and welcome to Beyond Theory. Today I want to talk to you about the fundamentals of Jean-Paul Sartre's philosophy, which consists of straightforward yet crucial concepts that can help us understand our human condition. You can capture the essence of Jean-Paul Sartre's philosophy with his famous statement, "Existence precedes essence." And at first, when you think about it, you'll realize that there's nothing really complicated about this statement, and that actually it makes perfect sense. However, it's not necessarily obvious at first. So, Jean-Paul Sartre coined this statement in a lecture given in 1945 entitled "Existentialism is a Humanism," which was later published as a book in 1946. So, the objective and the intention behind this lecture was to summarize the key elements of his philosophy and try to make them more accessible to a wider audience. Hence the sentence, "Existence precedes essence." The objective of that was to try to summarize the human condition in 3 words. So let's look into that together and let's explore his philosophy. We will try to answer 3 main questions. First, what does this sentence mean? Existence precedes essence. And what are the key elements that derive from it in his philosophy? And thirdly, why does the element or the idea of freedom so important to Jean-Paul Sartre? Let's look into that together. In his statement, "Existence precedes essence," Jean-Paul Sartre aims to perfectly define our human condition and also specify how it differs from those of animals and objects. And Sartre draws the line at freedom. For him, this is what separates us from objects and animals. And let me explain why. But first, let us examine the word essence to better understand the context. So essence, the word essence comes from Latin, esse, E-S-S-E, which means to be. And being is precisely that which can't change, is something that is fixed, is something, it's a defined element that can't evolve or can't change. So let's take an example of an object. A table, a chair, or a paper cutter, to use Sartre's example. A paper cutter has a specific function, and this function was decided by a craftsman before its creation. So a paper cutter was, let's say, created following a manufacturing plan or a model, and it was also created with a specific function or purpose in mind. So in that case, the object was created to fulfill a purpose. So the essence precedes the existence. Not like Sartre says, for humans, existence precedes essence. For object, its essence precedes existence, because the object, the essence, was already defined by someone, by a person, by a craftsman, before its creation. And this applies also to all the other objects, even though they can serve different purposes, but they're more or less confined to an essence. They cannot completely change the purpose of their creation. A paper cutter can open an envelope and can also cut a paper, but it cannot get out of this scope, because this scope was defined by the craftsman during its creation. And this is the difference with humans. For humans, it's a completely different story. There is no nature, no program, and no essence to lock us into a single definition of ourselves and determine us. Nothing and no one can say at the moment of our birth what we are and what we will be doing during our lifetime. As Jean-Paul Sartre says, man first of all exists, encounters himself, surges up in the world, and defines himself afterwards. We immediately understand how man is different from mere objects, because he wasn't created by a craftsman and didn't have a defined purpose before his creation. I know that there is an obvious answer to the argument I just made, and this answer would be that indeed there is a creator and there is a craftsman that created human beings and humanity in general, who is obviously God. And that makes perfect sense. This argument makes perfect sense, but you need to bear in mind that Jean-Paul Sartre was an atheist. So he doesn't believe in the argument of God. He doesn't believe in God's presence or God's existence. So for him, it doesn't make sense, because if God existed for Sartre, then it would have meant that we were just like paper cutters, that we have an essence, we have a meaning, we have an exact and precise purpose. We were created with a meaning and a purpose in mind. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to create us in the first place. And the realization Sartre made when observing people is like, these people don't have a meaning, and these people don't have an objective or a specific purpose. So it's inconceivable that there was a creator, because then how can you explain that these people don't have an essence or a purpose like the paper cutter that was created by a craftsman or a creator, which is a man? So this is the rationale of Jean-Paul Sartre. This is the argument of Sartre. Another idea that Sartre disagreed with is that we have a defined human nature. For Sartre, we are different from animals because they always respond to a nature that is inscribed in them from birth and that they simply repeat at every moment. For example, during its lifetime, the animal won't change and will always be perfectly predictable because of its nature. It is determined by nature. It won't have the capacity to change its instincts, reflect on itself, and alter its condition. This process is exclusive to humans. We're capable of change, of overcoming our instincts, and we have the complete freedom to define ourselves, not according to a predetermined nature. And this leads Sartre to logically refute the idea of a human nature, because we are free. And this freedom doesn't coincide with a nature. If man has a nature, it's because he isn't free. And on the contrary, if he's free, it's because he doesn't have a nature. And this is precisely Sartre's position. So after we've established that we're free and that we don't have a human nature, what's the concrete impact of this on our lives? Well, the impact is that this radical freedom means that we're completely free to choose our life's path. This means the hobbies we have, the activities we pursue, the goals we put to ourselves, the people we hang out with, every single detail is completely up to us, because we're not like animals. We don't behave according to a predetermined nature, and we're not like objects. We're not behaving according to a predetermined essence or a purpose. So it's completely up to us to choose what we do and how we behave. And it's the sum of these choices that will determine our essence. Do you get what I mean? It's only by doing that we will be able to create an essence. We can't create an essence by thinking of an essence. We need to act, and these actions or these choices will determine our essence. So to put it simply, if we want to judge someone's character, we can only do that by analyzing all the actions that they've done throughout their lives. So it's only at the end of someone's life would we be able to actually say whether this person was a good or a bad person. And this is why Sartre said there is no reality except in action, because action is the only thing that creates our reality, creates our world, creates our essence. So it's not a human nature, it's not ideas, and it's definitely not a predetermined essence. This highlights the importance of prioritizing action in our lives. It's good to have great ideas and have a vision for your life, but it's more important to act on them. Like Carl Jung said, you are what you do, not what you say you will do. For Sartre, to properly use our freedom, we must act. And if we don't take action and engage in this journey of meaning creation, our lives will be empty and futile. So in the face of this radical freedom of becoming anything at any time we want, we face some problems. Let's explore them together. So for Sartre, the main problem of this radical freedom is that we can all change the course of our action at any time, since we have the freedom to do so. We're free, we choose our actions, so we can always change the course of our action and change our behavior. So it's very difficult to put us in a box. It's very difficult to come up with a clear and precise definition of ourselves. We're constantly becoming, so we never coincide with a complete and comprehensive definition of ourselves. And for Sartre, this presents a problem because we're always under construction, we're always in a project, as he says. So for example, that's why it's really reductive to call someone based on a specific trait or a position or a function. So for example, it's reductive to call someone a fat person, a short person, or a taxi driver, because you lock the person in a specific essence, whereas in reality the person is much bigger than that. So that's why there's something derogatory into only viewing someone from a specific angle, when in reality the person is much more than that. The person has much more potential, much more freedom to be a lot more than what you chose to define him with. So this is why for Sartre it's considered as a violation to reduce someone to a specific essence. Let's take the example of a student. The student is a student today, but in 2 years he's a professional. In 5 he's a father. In 10 he's a manager. So by choosing to lock this person in a specific essence that you choose, you reduce him to his situation today. So you take from him the power of his freedom. You take from him the power of his decisions, the power of his actions, that he is never-ending potential. He can become so many things, yet you chose to lock him into what he is today. And that's why for Sartre, putting people in a box, even though is necessary, can create this type of problem. To be reduced to an essence is to deny our freedom to be something else. In a way, we're always much more than we are at a given moment. Everyone is in a constant stream of becoming. Being always in a project means always moving forward towards something else that we're not in the present moment. And if you want to look at it from a different perspective, you can take the origin of the word exist or existence. The prefix ex means outside, because existence in itself means to always be outside of oneself, to always be one step ahead of ourselves. And this perfectly describes what we were talking about being in a constant stream of becoming. And this reminds me of Heraclitus' famous quote, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." Because everything changes. The river changes and the man changes. And this is exactly what we were talking about. So this concept is a double-edged sword with both positive and negative aspects. The positive aspects would be that this freedom is exciting because it's an endless sea of possibilities. You're always evolving, you're always improving yourself, you're always becoming more and more, and there's always this excitement because you don't know what tomorrow holds, and you're always becoming someone new. So there is definitely an extremely positive aspect of having this immense potential. But also at the same time, the negative aspect would be that when you can become everything and anything at the same time, you are nothing, or as Sartre says, néant. Néant is nothingness, is you're everything at the same time, but you're also nothing. And this nothingness is definitely a less thrilling definition of freedom, because you have this potential side, but you also have this nothing side. So this negative nothing side creates a problem in our daily lives and our social interactions, because if I'm going to deal with someone, whether a partner, a friend, or someone I just met, I must be able to understand them, trust them, and predict them. And this is something we all have to do from a survival perspective. I can't be close to someone I don't know. And to know someone is to be able to predict them, to be able to know what they're capable of. And this is a really important topic, because when you meet someone for the first time, for example, what is the first thing you both do? You start asking questions, very maybe basic questions, such as, what do you do for a living? What's your name? How old are you? Where do you live? And these questions, the objective is definitely to get to know the other person, but the underlying motive is to be able to predict them. This highlights the fact that in a world of constant change, first impressions are crucial. People are always going to try and judge you and predict you based on a few seconds. And being aware of that is extremely important, because we can use it to our advantage by carefully crafting our identity and our image. This entails taking care of how we behave, how we present ourselves, how we talk, how we dress, because in any case, people are going to judge you based on the cover. And I know that judging a book by its cover is not good and is not the right way to get to know people. But as we've established, people have an urgent need to put you in a box. So might as well make them put you in the right box, because it's an unconscious game that everyone is playing. It's not manipulation. It's simply participating in this game. If you know you're going to be judged based on your appearance and based on the first few seconds, then might as well make the most out of it. This advice extends to our life in general, not only our image, because as free beings, we have the responsibility to acknowledge this freedom and act on it. If we are nothing, then we can become anything and everything. And denying this reality is to refuse to see things as they are. This is called bad faith, as Sartre puts it. Bad faith is the attitude of those who refuse to accept their freedom because it's too heavy to bear. Instead, they choose to deceive themselves by reducing their existence to that of an object, denying their own freedom and responsibility. This is the famous example of the cafe waiter that Sartre uses in his book Being and Nothingness, which has become a philosophical landmark. The waiter is a free man who tricks himself by behaving as if he isn't free. He adopts everything that is expected from a waiter, which makes him a fixed being. He dresses like a waiter, behaves, moves, and talks like a waiter too. He always asks the same thing, smiles in the same way, and carries things in a certain way. In short, the waiter behaves in a way that is intended to meet a precise expectation. As a result, he shows himself to be perfectly predictable for others. He acts like a robot, and when he acts like that, he's nothing more than a waiter. He's become a thing or a function. In that moment, he denies his freedom to become anything else, and that's bad faith. Of course, when you first hear this example, the first thing that you might think to yourself is that the waiter is only trying to earn a living. He's only doing his job. These are the requirements for the job. So he isn't really thinking from it from an existentialist perspective. He's just executing his daily tasks and doing his job to earn a living. So the answer to that is that you are definitely right if you think that. But Sartre doesn't criticize the waiter himself. Sartre only uses the waiter to make a point, and the point being that we sometimes in our daily lives, we act and we behave like the waiter. So the critique is not necessarily targeted to the waiter, but to us, to ourselves, because sometimes in our daily lives we try to renounce our freedom. We try to reduce our existence to a fixed being, as if we're something specific and we can't be anything more than it. And this is the problem that Sartre wants to highlight, because the human condition has two sides. We can see it as two sides of the same coin. We have facticity on the one hand and our freedom on the other. Facticity refers to the things that we can't change. The place of birth, our parents, etc., like how tall we are, etc. The things that we were born with. However, freedom refers to everything else. It's all these things that we can change. The job we have, the activities we pursue, our ambitions, our plans, our friends, and everything else. So bad faith is simply identifying more with facticity over freedom. It's trying to escape freedom by saying, I'm only this and I can't change. This is me, this is who I am, and I can't change. You renounce your freedom and you over-identify with facticity, with the things you can't change, to escape the responsibility to act. And Sartre says that when we do that, it's a futile attempt. When we try to objectify ourselves, it's a futile attempt, because he also says, and we also said in the beginning, that we're free to do anything in the world, except one thing. The only thing we're not free to do is to renounce our freedom. So no matter how many times we try to renounce it and objectify ourselves and try to fit our whole existence into a tiny box to escape the responsibility to act, it's a futile attempt, because whether we like it or not, we are free. This is what characterizes human beings. This is what characterizes our existence. So you might ask yourself, why do people not want to be free? Why do people renounce their freedom? Why does the waiter want to be a fixed being and renounce his freedom? Why do some people want to be in a state of childhood all their lives and escape responsibility and not act and have someone else make decisions for them? And Sartre's answer is very precise, is that freedom is scary. Freedom is daunting and it's horrifying. It makes people really scared. They don't want to use it, because using your freedom means deciding. And if you get to decide, that means that you must deal and accept with the outcome, with the consequences of your actions. And for Sartre, this is the main problem of freedom. And this is what led him to say that man is condemned to be free. Condemned because you never chose to be born, yet you find yourself here. And you found yourself watching this video, realizing that all you have is freedom and that you must act. And that if you don't act, then you become nothing and you stay nothing. So if we don't act, then we never get to reach the potential we have. We never get to experience what it's like to live a meaningful and fulfilling life. So we have this pressure to act, and then we also have this pressure to deal with our consequences and accept the outcomes. And for Sartre, this is why we're condemned. But there is a solution to that. We must act despite this condemnation. We must act despite the fear of the outcomes. Because what's the alternative solution? It's staying where you are, never doing anything, never amounting to anything. So for Sartre, it's a very easy decision between staying like this, being nothing, amounting to nothing, or actually doing something, trying, even if there is a possibility of failing, because no one says that all the actions would be beneficial to you or successful. There is definitely a room for failure, but at least you're moving, at least you're doing something. So just to finish this video, always remember that you have a choice between two things. You can either renounce your freedom and live in retreat, identify with a fixed being, you're like that, you can never change and that's it. Or you use your courage and take control of your life and try as much as possible to live authentically, to live according to your own terms. And always remember that the choice will always be yours. Thank you for watching.